Jong Sang-woo is your typical college student in South Korea, one who dreams of a life full of wealth, one who always wishes to be able to do multiple things at once at his convenience. To party, to travel, to be in a relationship, to play games, and to make money. This ambition of his resulted in him being awakened at the 10th Portal Awakening program that he is currently attending at the moment. To be awakened means to unlock the mana that the people were exposed to be able to have an awakening, making them cross over a portal. With this they unlock certain skills that they can use for either daily activities or hunter work. As the program was being spearheaded by an A-rank hunter named Park Won-tae, Sang-woo finally gets his turn to be awakened. He was instructed by one of the proctors to leave all his gadgets in order to cross the portal. Once he crossed over the portal, he was confirmed by the system as well. During his transfer, he woke up in a bunker with other participants of the program. Others were already showing skills that were really impressive. One woman on his side was able to summon a phoenix-like creature for a brief moment, only to be hoarded by a bunch of men from guilds who were trying to recruit new members. As he was standing up, he was approached by a nearby guild recruiter and asked him how is he feeling and what skill he might have awakened. Sang-woo then checked his status window only to find below-average stats and a skill called cloning, a casting-type skill together with a clone-strengthening passive skill. The skill effect is literally the name itself. The user will be able to summon a clone with a 24-hour cooldown. The passive skill means half of his stats are applied to the clone he has summoned. He was then again asked by the recruiter regarding the skill he attained, and he informed that it was cloning. The recruiter seemed to be a little disappointed but did not realize it was cloning and misunderstood it for an illusion cloning skill in which the clone cannot physically do anything, unlike Sang-woo's attained skill. The recruiter was still trying to cheer him up and advised him to at least show his skill to the officials so he would get an accurate judgment. Looking at those who presented earlier, Sang-woo felt pressured and decided to look for the exit. The recruiter told him that he just needed to see the exploring troop in order to be scanned and registered so that he could go back to the portal. At the exit, he was informed overall of his skills and was told that there was a 73% chance of having one or more skills to be unlocked. During the time all of his stats and skills were being registered, information was sent to his identification bracelet. He then goes back to his apartment where his PC was left AFK on this online MMORPG he was playing. As he lay on his bed, he remembered that he forgot to pay his tuition and rent for the month, thinking of getting a part-time job but also wanted someone to work in his place instead of him. He remembered his cloning skill. Sang-woo then stands up and concentrates. Then a sudden surge of energy flows out of his body and an exact clone of him shows up. As the summoned clone appeared in front of him without any clothes on, he was surprised and examined it a little bit, with some small talk and questions that the clone immediately answered. He then did some simple commands which the clone immediately responded, finding that he didn't have to command it verbally, and it had the same stamina as him. He received a text message from his college friend Jangdu, who brags about getting 2 skills at his awakening program, completely forgetting that his clone is still doing the command he gave, causing him to earn a small stat point in stamina. In another place, the jumper, George Lucas, an S-rank level hunter from the US and the leader of the Enlightened Guild in the United States, is the first to conquer Odin's infamous Tower dungeon. In his guild's headquarters, he gets informed by his secretary that 80% of the 300 million population have been awakened, with an estimate of achieving 100% in the next 5 years, considering the trend of the participants in the awakening program. As he looks outside of his building headquarters, seemingly expecting of what it is to come. Back in South Korea, some runners and joggers are surprised by an individual who does not stop running at a park. Amidst the hot season, he is still running with his hoodie on, never taking a day off. He was then offered water by an old woman who also exercises in the area, but he didn't respond and just went back to running. People did not know that it was Jong Sang-woo, except that the one doing the exercise was his clone. After a month, Sang-woo realized that he had lost some weight and felt the changes that his clone did during exercises. His stats gradually improved bit by bit, and has more understanding of how his cloning skill actually works, its limits, benefits, and other information such as his clone not being able to use the clone skill itself. He then checks out HunterWiki on the internet. It is the site where people who are awakened check out more information about awakening, stats, and even items they could buy to improve their skills. He then read from the website that the stats that he earns are not that easy to attain by mere training, in which he gives thanks to the clone that he makes. There is also a category of special stats like regeneration, resistance, vitality, and willpower, but the way to acquire these is mostly unknown at the time. As he looked at his status window, he noticed the slight differences of his stats being subpar to being in a level in which he can move more with less stamina expended. He thought about training with his clone but decided immediately not to due to the hellish training it undergoes. He then picked up a gym advertisement flyer and then looked at the MMORPG he was playing, and thought that he could be the brains, and his clone would be the bronze. After paying for his tuition for college, Sang-woo finds himself in a situation in which he really needs money. Due to the fact that he had mostly spent his budget on food during the last couple of days, especially now that his main source of income has dried out. He decided to look for physical labor jobs on the internet, so he could be able to earn money while also working on his stamina, since giving complicated orders to his clone might run into some problems in the future. He then finds part-time work at a distribution center. The wage is decent, and it would be a good exercise for him as well. He immediately calls the number provided on the job opening and gets the job instantly. He was also asked if he can work today, and he agreed since he really needed funds as quick as possible. He arrived at the location, along with number 1, his clone. Sang-woo instructed his clone that he would only speak when spoken to and that his work name is Jaeongdo. He found a familiar face who is Mr. Deokshil, who is his friend who works in the facility as well. Sang-woo was not immediately recognized due to his weight loss and the sudden change of appearance. Deokshil then pointed out where he should go for the part-time job. Sang-woo then musters up his confidence, and then proceeds to go in with his clone inside the facility. All that confidence at first was somehow lost as Sang-woo is just exhausted and tired from all the hard labor in the warehouse facility, as if there was no end to the boxes they should deliver. His clone, on the other hand, together with the other employees, seems to be just holding their ground well. He thought that his clone should just be there and not him, since it is clearly doing fine. Lunch break came with Sang-woo clearly showing signs of exhaustion. Mr. Deokshil hands him and Jaeongdo some soda. Deokshil praises them for getting far, since usually all newcomers quit on the first day. Deokshil also asks Sang-woo how was he able to attend the university, and Sang-woo explains it was through some certifications and special admissions. Mr. Deokshil then offers him another gig, which is to be a private tutor for her daughter. He offers him a good amount, which Sang-woo immediately accepts. Mr. Deokshil said that he would also be talking about this matter to his wife and daughter and would contact him later on. After their conversation, Sang-woo looks for his food, but he sees his clone casually eating it all. The next day, Sang-woo wakes up with his whole body in pain due to the labor work he did at the warehouse facility. Looking at his stats, that is still gradually increasing due to his clone exercising outside, he decides to command his clone to return and prep up for the next task as he was finishing breakfast. He tried unlocking the special stat of regeneration by pricking his clone's finger with a needle, following an instruction from the HunterWiki website's forum. Later on, Sang-woo left with a couple of commands to his clone, including a phone, since he was now on his way to the gym for his own exercise routine. As he was passing by the avenue, someone put his arm around him, and it was Kim Jaeongdo, his college friend, who was actually surprised by the sudden change of his appearance due to weight loss. Jaeongdo decided to come with Sang-woo, believing that the gym he will be going to is cool and has a girl trainer they would like. Upon arriving at the gym, Sang-woo was then greeted by one of the employees. After registering for 3 months, they went ahead and exercised. Jaeongdo easily bench presses 50 kilograms, and all the people in the gym were shocked. He also revealed that his strength stat is at 2.1, and he also has a strength boost skill which he received at his awakening program. Seeing this, Sang-woo wonders how strong the other high-profile hunters are. Sang-woo receives a call from Mr. Deokshil asking if he could go to their apartment and talk with his daughter to convince her to take tutoring lessons. Sang-woo then proceeds to Mr. Deokshil's apartment, and hears screams from Mr. Deokshil's daughter, who is complaining about the tutoring services and tells her dad to cancel it right away. Mr. Deokshil argues about it as he rushes outside the door, which it slams into Sang-woo, who is eavesdropping. Everybody was surprised as Mr. Deokshil's daughter sees Sang-woo at the front of their door. After the accident, Sangwoo finds himself inside Mr. Deokshio's apartment. He is then greeted by his wife, Mrs. Jang, who serves them some food at the table while telling him that he looks like a different person due to his recent weight loss. After they exchange greetings, he then proceeds to greet their daughter named Haizan. Mr. and Mrs. Jang, on the other hand, are making fun of their daughter, who is blushing as Sangwoo evaluates her grades, while Haizan is flustered since she thought Sangwoo heard the commotion earlier. Sangwoo is surprised by how bad her grades are but is still positive that there is room for improvement, as they agreed to go ahead and study right away. Sangwoo gets back to his apartment and notices that his clone is still at the warehouse facility doing its work. He thoughts about Haizan being better than what he expected, despite the grades she showed him earlier. Sangwoo then realizes that the spare phone won't be enough once he could summon more clones later on. He then proceeds to look into the Hunter website to look for related skills and items for his cloning, only to be shocked at how the prices are ridiculously high, thinking that he would rather buy a house than buy those items. Sangwoo then contemplates that he would have to save his whole life for those items, and wonders how hunters could afford these items. He looked at the news and it was all about hunters making a fortune and being at the height of success all over them. Realizing that he didn't get those awesome skills just to load trucks, he musters up his confidence and decides to be a hunter, as he unlocks vitality as one of his special stat. Now, what are hunters? In 2000, almost all of humanity was wiped out due to portals that suddenly opened across the world with monsters flooding out of it, which is called the Great Disaster. It led to the population of the world being cut in half, but then, superhumans showed up with powers that can go toe-to-toe with the monsters that appeared around the world. With them at the forefront, humanity was barely able to come out victorious. Now the people who are still killing the remaining monsters in the world are known as hunters. As Sangwoo headed to the Hunter Center to register, he also looked at videos on the internet on how to qualify and pass as a hunter. He only had a couple of hours of sleep due to his preparation, but thanks to his vitality skill he unlocked, he feels more better than yesterday. The Hunter Center building has a variety of stalls, from items to recruitment, but with only a small amount of people to register. As Sangwoo heard the announcement about where the qualification exam would be taken, he then proceeded to it. Despite being quite nervous, he opens the door and says his greetings but sees scary-looking people, which shocks him. The proctor of the exam then appears and introduces himself. He is Myung-hwan Han, who will be overseeing everything at the exam. He instructed that there will be 3 parts of the exam, which are a writing, performance, and aptitude exam, and that anyone who will be caught cheating will be automatically disqualified with a 1-year ban from taking the exam. Now, the Hunter exam begins. On a busy street, Junmo Khan, who is an agency representative from JM Agency, is having a problematic financial conversation over the phone. Despite the issue, he is still showing his grit and is on his way to meet the newly registered hunters. Sangwoo then completes the hunter exam and is classified as an F rank, which is the starting point for any newly registered hunters. Despite the proctor being intimidating, he thinks that the exam is too easy and is barely any harder than a driver's license test. The writing exam was only 20 questions and was really understandable. The performance test was just a target practice, and they were given advantages. The last exam was the aptitude test, and he just compared it to an elementary school ethics class. After that, he thought that it was too easy for a job that risked lives and that the government was rushing to take them in, but decided not to overthink it. As he was walking out of the hunter building exam, he saw a couple of recruiters who were trying to make the newly registered hunters join their agency. He was then approached by Junmo Kang, who handed him his calling card in which he showed interest. Their conversation almost ended when Sangwoo's status window flashed across his face, showing that his cloning skill had leveled up and he could now summon 2 of his clones at the same time, which resulted in him running back to his home, without having a proper conversation with Junmo Kang, whom he left alone speechless outside of the building. Back to his apartment, Sangwoo was able to summon his clone number 2 and expected a lot of good things to happen from then on as he looked at the calling card that Junmo Kang gave him earlier. Junmo, on the other hand, then finishes up giving some of his calling cards and hoped that some of the hunters would call him back. He then remembered when he was still a member of the Haizan guild. He was then tasked to make payments on a list given by his supervisor, He noticed that some of the prices weren't making any sense, and immediately told his supervisor about it, but the supervisor advised him to be quick-witted or else nothing would be left for them. He also told Junmo not to be too sensitive about the guild business. Junmo then receives a call from Sangwoo, who would like to ask some questions, so they agreed to meet at a cafe. Sangwoo liked to know about the hunting grounds that were safe and suitable for his level. Junmo then confirmed it, and asked Sangwoo about his skill, to which he said cloning. Junmo thought it was an ordinary illusion clone that was pretty useless, but then proceeded to hand his contract and explained him the hunting grounds that are available to his skill level. He recommended the slime grounds, which only needs some protective gear due to the slime's nature, and the horned rabbit's nest, which is also good but needs some time to be familiar with since you have to shoot it from a distance, and they are quite difficult to catch but safe. Sangwoo liked the contract and proceeded to agree to the terms Junmo gave. Junmo asked which of the two hunting grounds would Sangwoo like to go to first, and as Sangwoo said both, he revealed his clone that surprised Junmo. As Sangwoo stated, he meant to hunt at both places at the same time. Junmo had a flashback from an interview with a hunter who had a similar skill, but the difference is its clones are only illusions and cannot do anything physical. However, after looking at what Sangwoo is demonstrating in front of him, he even thinks that they are twins, but Sangwoo explains to him that it is not an illusion clone and he has actual substance. He also informs him that he has another clone who is at the gym right now, explaining some of the perks that he gains from doing so. Junmo thought that it was not just a basic skill and that there was a lot of potential in what Sangwoo could do as a hunter. Sangwoo then asks him about being able to be at two hunting grounds at the same time. Junmo said that there could be problems, but he will be able to talk to the Hunter Association to get it sorted out, and that he might undergo another bracelet scan and skill demonstration. Sangwoo agreed, but due to the cooldown of his skill, they both decided to do it 2 days from now. As for the contract signing, Junmo confirmed that it was already signed and showed great happiness and eagerness for a bright future in working together. 2 days later, at the Hunter Association building outside, Sangwoo seemed to be a little anxious but went early, as he was also greeted by Junmo. The inside of the building is huge and is full of hunters who are inquiring left and right. As they approached one of the workers there, they immediately informed the worker regarding his request to be able to be at both hunting grounds at the same time. The worker said Sangwoo was the first to ask for it since Jumper. After working on relevant applications on Sangwoo's request, the worker gave him a huge pile of documents to be filled out, which made Sangwoo surprised. But Junmo said he would be handling it, and that Sangwoo should be in the demonstration room to receive a suitability evaluation. Sangwoo then goes over to the demonstration room to show his skills to the proctors. Despite some embarrassing moments, he is still able to make a good impression and is provided with new authorization for his clones together with an ID bracelet like his. Considering the nature of cloning, it was made possible that he would be able to enter separate hunting grounds and for his clones to enter the same one after him. The mechanic even said that his skill could be a breakthrough not just in Korea but for the whole world as well, but Sangwoo brushes it off and leaves, leaving the mechanic bummed out. After that, he meets with Junmo after finishing the application, with Sangwoo planning to go immediately hunting. Junmo asks why his clone is wearing a mask, but Sangwoo replies that it is discomforting that people are showing too much interest in his skill. While they were conversing, an individual took notice of them on one of the higher floors. It was Haizan Shin, Haizan's guild master, the #1 guild in Korea. Haizan calls out for Junmo, leaps from the upper floor, and then lands where Sangwoo and Junmo are standing. He then greets Junmo with a menacing look and tone of voice. Sangwoo, on the other hand, is aware of who Haizan is. Junmo then greets him politely, but Haizan laughs it off and tells him that they are old buddies. He then looks at Sangwoo with intimidation and asks who he is. Junmo says that he is a hunter associated with his company. Haizan then proceeds to mock both Sangwoo and Junmo due to Sangwoo's rank and Junmo's sudden deterioration in his line of work, since he used to work with C and B ranked hunters, while laughing. Junmo got angry and was about to confront Haizan, but he was stopped by Sangwoo. Haizan then intimidated Sangwoo, but Sangwoo smiled and appreciated his presence by meeting him, the #1 guild master. Haizan compliments Sangwoo on his knowledge, but then Sangwoo continues to say that his guild is #1 in Monopoly and Dungeons, its control over hunting grounds, and other irritating statements that annoyed Haizan. Haizan was surprised by his courage and suddenly appeared behind Sangwoo, questioning him if he could back up his words, but as he was about to make his move, his employee rushed over and called him, making him stop and return to the business he should be doing. He then asked for Sangwoo's name, but Sangwoo said he should find out for himself. Haizan laughs it off and parted ways with them both. As Junmo drives Sangwoo and clone number 1 to the hunting grounds, he thanks Sangwoo for earlier. Sangwoo says that he just couldn't stand back and do nothing. Junmo asks if Sangwoo knows his history with the Haizan Guild, which Sangwoo confirms and tells him he looked into everything before signing the contract. There was not much information online, but he found that Junmo was dismissed from Haizan for whistleblowing. Due to this, people are scared of joining his agency due to the Haizan Guild's power. Junmo asks why Sangwoo still joined. Sangwoo makes a smug face, saying that it's because his portion of the profit is amazing, and besides, he figured he could trust someone who would leave a guild because they couldn't bear the corruption. Junmo was held back to his statement, and thanked Sangwoo. Meanwhile, one of Sangwoo's clone is in the middle of exercise in the gym, and the people around him is concerned since he has been training hard too much without asking for help. He then receives a text from Sangwoo instructing him to stop working out, wash up, and meet him in front of the gym by 4, which he immediately does, making the gym facilitator relieved. In the slime hunting grounds, Sangwoo had just finished trying it out. Junmo asks him how it goes, and Sangwoo tells him how quite difficult it is due to the nature of the slime since he emits toxic gas after getting killed. Sangwoo is also not lenient about the equipment durability, since getting a better one would mean paying more than earning. He suddenly then introduced clone number 2 to do the job for him since he has already experienced it himself. He then puts the hunting gear to clone number 2 and tells him that he got this as Junmo looks at him nervously. After clone number 2 goes in, Sangwoo tells Junmo that they should head to the horned rabbit hunting grounds. Sangwoo then turns to look at clone number 1, but then he remembers that he should have picked him up at the gym earlier but completely forgot about it. Clone number 1 on the other hand is still waiting outside the gym, shaking from the exercise. Sangwoo then picks up clone number 1 with Junmo. Junmo then asks Sangwoo why he calls them by numbers and not names. Sangwoo then tells him that since they all looked alike it doesn't make any sense, and would just cause confusion, which Junmo agrees. Sangwoo then talked about the horned rabbit hunting grounds needing guns to hunt. He should be needing to bring his own equipment. Junmo confirms it but also informs him that there is decent equipment that's also available at the hunting ground itself. He still recommended Sangwoo to buy his own equipment, since the equipment available could only be used in the hunting ground. They suddenly heard gunshots, meaning that they had arrived at the location, Yujangsan Field. The location is almost like a huge military facility or base camp with all the soldiers patrolling since the place was famed for the monster break that occurred there. Usually, portals are cut off from the outside world, that's why most hunts are conducted by hunters from within portals. However, sometimes monsters cross these portals and cause terror as locations near these portals suddenly turn into a battlefield, which is also known as monster break. Most of the high-level monsters were already dealt with 5 years ago at the time of the break. Now most of the spots are F and E rank friendly. They went to one of the equipment rentals there. All the equipment Sangwoo needed cost around 700,000 won, as it left him trembling with the price. Junmo then said that it is really the case, but it won't seem bad if he can catch a bunch of them since one horned rabbit is equivalent to one whole tank of slime. After that, all 3 of them went to the designated hunting area. Upon entering they were greeted by the sound of gunshots and other hunters collecting horned rabbits as Sangwoo prepared. Junmo asked if he was good with a gun, to which Sangwoo replied confidently that he only missed 3 times in the hunter qualification shooting test. He then prepares and then aims at the first horned rabbit he sees and shoots. 3 hours passed, and Sangwoo lost all confidence since he had not hit anything nor captured one since then, since the horned rabbits always scampered off the moment he was about to shoot. Even Junmo left after waiting for him to catch one. Losing hope, he then instructed clone number 1 to kill and catch a rabbit, then told him to text him 1 every time he got one and call him once he ran out of bullets, then went home with a disappointed look. Sangwoo then looks at his stats and sees that clone number 2 is doing a good job, as per seeing that his magic stat is increasing. He also noticed that he keeps on leveling up but is still nowhere near where he needs to be when he remembered about the situation with Haizan earlier. He still can't believe that the horned rabbits were hard to catch and hoped clone number 1 would at least catch one. While Sangwoo sleeps, His phone continuously rings from the sudden messages from clone number 1. Junmo received a call from the manager of the slime hunting grounds asking him to stop his hunter, as he had already been in the field for 24 hours, and they thought that something was wrong with him. Junmo then immediately proceeds to the area as Sangwoo wakes up from his bed. Upon checking his phone, he sees a missed call meaning that clone number 1 already has run out of bullets, and Sangwoo is shocked at what he saw. Junmo, on the other hand, was surprised that clone number 2 was able to fill 8 whole slime tanks in one day, as the portal guards tried to stop clone number 2 from going back in. Junmo then calls Sangwoo and tells him what happened and that he is calling the monster corpse collectors and he can tell clone number 2 to stop now. Sangwoo responds positively, and also asks Junmo to do the same thing to clone number 1 at Yujangsan since he thinks that the whole situation is almost the same there with clone number 1 killing a ton of horned rabbits. The people at Yujangsan are crowding over clone number 1 as they look upon a mountain of dead horned rabbits. He is then approached by a sales team leader of a guild who also hands out his business card, but there is no response from clone number 1. The agent was furious, but he was told by other major guild agents who already tried talking to clone number 1 earlier that it was no use. Sangwoo then went in and handed clone number 1 more ammunition, instructed him to hand over the corpses to Junmo and praised him. Clone number 1 was happy with the praise as he loads up the rifle to hunt again. People swarmed around clone number 1 as Sangwoo slips away from the crowd. Sangwoo rethinks his clone's capabilities due to the fact that even if only half of his stats are given to them, their ability far surpasses what he has expected and they perform like machines, with no hesitation, fully focused. He was then startled by Haizan. As they were in the middle of private tutoring, he apologized and Haizan asked him what he was thinking. He mentioned his last hunt and Haizan was surprised to find out that Sangwoo was a hunter. Sangwoo was humble about it, but then Haizan asked him if he knew this now famous hunter called Yu Jangsan's Eagle Eye. Then she showed him a video of clone number 1 getting interviewed. Sangwoo was surprised and nervous. Haizan thinks he is cool and her actual dream is to be a hunter herself. Sangwoo asks if she is already awakened and she confirms it. She also passed the hunter's exam already but finds herself scared of going to the hunting ground. She requested that Sangwoo take her there if she passed her exams, to which Sangwoo agreed. Haizan was very happy as they both made a promise to make it happen. After their tutoring was over, Mrs. Jang asked Sangwoo how she was doing and Sangwoo praised her, which made Mrs. Jang surprised. She then offered him dinner but Sangwoo needed to be elsewhere and respectfully declined. As Sangwoo left, Haizan jumped around her room with joy as she talked to her teddy bear. She was happy that she got a date with Sangwoo. She initially disliked the tutoring idea as it was someone his dad knew, but after being under Sangwoo's supervision, she found Sangwoo kind and good-looking. Thankful for what happened, she then motivates herself to get back to studying. Sangwoo went to Yu Jangsan's hunting grounds and met with Junmo to collect monster corpses that were killed by clone number 1. Junmo stated that he needed to call collection teams from all sorts of hunting grounds due to the number of horned rabbits that clone number 1 collected. With a count of 352 in total, it was the most that they collected in one go. Sangwoo was then informed by Junmo that his earnings were sent in already. Sangwoo's jaw dropped at the money that he earned, saying that it could be too much, but Junmo explained that he paid him at a rate of an E-rank hunter due to the skill his clones showed, in which Sangwoo was thankful yet thinks he is still not there. Suddenly they were approached by another hunter who was angry, claiming that clone number 1 stole all of the horned rabbits that he was supposed to hunt, and demanded compensation. Sangwoo and Junmo were surprised but were still calm as the hunter demanded at least 10% commission on the earnings. Sangwoo burst out laughing, which annoyed the hunter as Sangwoo then told that clone number 1 wouldn't be here for a while due to his recent hunt. As they attempted to leave, the hunter tried to stop them but was then ignored. Sangwoo and Junmo, the hunter attacked in anger. Sangwoo then calls clone number 1 who takes the punch, sending him flying, which is then recorded by Sangwoo on his phone, saying that this could cause a ruckus if people find out there was violence on the hunting ground. The move made the hunter terrified of the idea as Sangwoo told him with a grim look on his face that they were leaving now, making the hunter furious but helpless. Junmo tells Sangwoo that the hunter who tried to swindle them was a member sent by the Haizan guild due to Junmo's past with the guild. Junmo noticed it already as he was on the phone with the collection team and the hunter was there watching him the moment they started the collection. He assumed it was Haizan's way of getting back at him. Junmo stated that it is nothing new for the hunters he recruited to face these problems, and as embarrassing as it sounds, it is also the reason why they leave his agency with only Sangwoo and a few other F-rank hunters that are left. Sangwoo, being aware of all the danger, assures Junmo that everything will be okay and that they can't let Haizan mess with them anymore, and that is why Sangwoo is thinking of a way to get stronger faster. He then explained his plans to Junmo. Junmo was interested, and they agreed to meet at the Hunter Market tomorrow at 2 p.m. The Hunter Market already speaks for what it offers, from trading weapons, armor, and equipment that replaced hunter-to-hunter trades that hold an unrivaled position in the industry, and their giant building has a lot to offer to hunters that go there. Junmo goes with Sangwoo to buy new armor sets, which is a light armor type made from titanium alloy that is guaranteed to protect him from E-rank monster attacks, which Sangwoo really likes and also prefers a gun and a knife as his weapon. He then orders a set of 3 of that armor and weapons. They also proceeded to look for the familiar skill ball, which shares the sense and the visions of the owner's familiar, summons, and pets. However, Sangwoo was shocked at the price of the skill and then asked Junmo for an advance. Junmo was quite hesitant but still sent the amount, as Sangwoo stated that if things went to plan, it would eventually pay itself in no time. Sangwoo headed back to his place with all the items he had bought from the Hunter Market. He followed the instructions on the manual of the familiar skill ball in order to activate it. After confirming that the skill had been added, he called both of the clones who were also wearing their new set of armor and weapons he bought earlier. In their conversation yesterday, Sangwoo shared information about his clones, revealing that they only possessed half of his stats. However, he noted that one of his clones had successfully captured over 300 horned rabbits, highlighting his clone's skill and abilities. He also mentioned the incident in which he had instructed his clone to act as if they were hit by a hunter's punch and to overreact dramatically. Sangwoo acknowledged that perfectly timing such actions and fearlessly allowing his clone to get hit by the punch was not an easy task, but it demonstrated the clone's capabilities. Sangwoo further speculated that his clone could have beaten the hunter if it wanted to, suggesting that the clone that even though their stats are low, the clones possess incredible control over their bodies, and Sangwoo wants to take advantage of it using the familiar skill. His plan involves that the clones be in 2 locations at the same time, one for close-quarter combat, and one for long-range weapons. To be most effective, he plans to push the clones to their limits. He could feel what they were experiencing with the use of familiar skill. The 2 clones showed great skill, which surprised the facilitators of the training grounds they went into. Sangwoo, on the other hand, was in another location as he activated the familiar skill. He went first to his clone at the close-quarter combat training and sensed everything during the clone's sparring session. After that, he used the familiar skill at his clone at the shooting range and did the same approach earlier, getting the hang of things and how his clone was doing their designated tasks, copying every move he could as he made his own. As Sangwoo absorbs all of the skills and body movements that his clones have experienced in both of their respective training, his status window informs him that his strength and reflexes have increased as well. He then decides to go back and forth between his 2 clones to maximize his newly acquired skill. He starts with his clone that is in the close-quarter combat gym, which is now facing the gym's manager, who is probably the strongest in the area. They exchange blows as the manager saw that his offense is still not polished, but his defense was perfect with the way that he evaded his attack. They continued to attack each other with all of their strength as Sangwoo's clone mirrored the manager's attack, which he noticed immediately. The manager then swipes high but was dodged by the clone and was able to counter-hit the manager by the shoulders, cornering him into a wall. As Sangwoo was about to deliver the final blow, the manager suddenly uses the wall to his advantage to launch himself up in the air for a surprise counter-attack and disarms the clone that Sangwoo looking into using his familiar skill. Sangwoo also felt the pain in his wrist from the manager's attack. The manager told him it was a close call and asked if he wanted to continue. Sangwoo asked number 1 if he was fine, but he copied the move earlier, which surprised everyone, even Sangwoo himself. After doing so, his clone raised his head and asked for another round. The gym manager was delighted to do so. Sangwoo then switched to number 2 that is on the shooting range, as he was speechless that his clone was so accurate. He was even hitting the clay targets of a man who was trying to impress his girlfriend nearby, thinking he was the one hitting the targets, but it's the clone's doing. Sangwoo then absorbs how his clone takes aim during target hitting, with the postures and the prediction of where the target will be at a certain point, and remembers all the other fundamentals of shooting, taking in what his clones have. Sangwoo then goes back to his body after using the skill. He suddenly feels dizzy due to using too much mana and decides to rest for a while. He was amazed by his clone's lack of hesitation and fear, thinking that next time he himself should go with his clones on training. Sangwoo was greeted by Hien, who seemed to be on her way home from the library. As they were conversing, some people were watching them, who planned to get back at Sangwoo. It was the hunter at Yujangsan who tried to swindle them, only this time he's with a couple of people. Earlier, the hunter whom Sangwoo confronted at Yujangsan was scolded by someone over the phone for not being able to do something to them the last time they met, and was told not to go near Yujangsan, and denied being a member of the Haizan guild, leaving him furious as he throws his phone away, but was then called by his friend Gyunseok, which is a loan shark. The hunter told him what happened. As he was about to offer him some collecting gigs, the hunter saw Sangwoo together with Hien near their location. He points to them and confirms to Gyunseok that it was the person who took the video, Gyunseok, and the hunter together with another person then confronts Sangwoo, who notices the hunter behind Gyunseok. He calls for his clones and then asks what they want from them. The hunter was about to jump and attack but was calmed down by Gyunseok, who then tells Sangwoo that he should delete the video and they can go away unharmed. Sangwoo reconfirms the terms, but Gyunseok calls it out, and will still harm him anyway. Sangwoo tells Hien to run away when she sees the chance as he prepares to fight. Gyunseok calls to attack as the hunter and one of his lackeys rush to Sangwoo, who tries to dodge some of the attacks but is still hit and falls into the ground. Hien tried to intervene by displaying her ability, which startled the two who attacked Sangwoo. Gyunseok then told the two to not be afraid of a high schooler and decided to come in himself. Hien attacks him with the Orb of Light. His two assistants are shocked at first, but he takes no damage despite the attack and is about to hit Hien. Sangwoo steps in and is able to block the hit and lands a counterpunch to the face of Gyunseok. Sangwoo immediately remembered the training earlier as the hunter went in to attack him, which he dodged with ease and was able to easily land a counterattack on his face. Gyunseok's lackey followed with an attack. Sangwoo decided to exchange blows Gyunseok's lackey to fall to the ground because of the hit. Gyunseok was able to recover and even smiled at the opportunity of being able to go full force due to Sangwoo's skills. Sangwoo was still reeling from the damage from earlier and assumed Gyunseok had a strength enhancement skill. Gyunseok rushes in to attack Sangwoo, but Sangwoo is able to dodge the punch and land a counter hit again, and continues doing so, landing heavy hits to Gyunseok, who is having a hard time landing a hit on Sangwoo. Sangwoo was too agile, dodging left and right. Gyunseok's body started to spark as he charged up a powerful blow which Sangwoo was trying to anticipate, but his feet were grabbed by Gyunseok's lackey, which caught him off guard. Gyunseok lands the attack on Sangwoo's body, sending him flying. Sangwoo struggled to breathe due to the attack. Gyunseok was about to land the final hit when Hien used her magic to attack Gyunseok and assist Sangwoo. Gyunseok's lackeys rushed to Hien but were stopped by clones number 1 and 2 upon their arrival at the scene. Sangwoo was able to recover due to this as Gyunseok then charged at Sangwoo, who displayed the skill he copied from the gym manager, landing the final blow and knocking out Gyunseok. Sangwoo's stats increased, such as his strength, reflex, stamina, and endurance, and because of the intensity of the fight, Sangwoo's cloning skill has leveled up and he can now summon 3 clones, and its passive skills have leveled up as well. He laughed before laying down, exhausted. Later, Sangwoo is taking Hien home. He asks why didn't Hien run earlier, but she answers jokingly, to which Sangwoo somehow agrees but still insists that it was dangerous. Hien also could not believe that his clone was Yujangsan's Eagle Eye, but Sangwoo hoped that she would not go around telling everyone since it might cause some problems like the one they encountered earlier. Hien agreed as they arrived at her apartment. Sangwoo confirmed again if Hien was okay and she told him to not worry about it, and suggested he should give her less homework, but Sangwoo knew that she already completed it a while ago. Sangwoo then thanks Hien once again for her help earlier, and she tells Sangwoo to just treat her to dinner. Sangwoo agrees and will try to find a day that could fit both of their schedules, to which Hien is delighted. Sangwoo then asks his clones why they are still following him and that they should be working out. His clones inform him that all the training facilities have already closed. He then picks up a couple of sticks of tree branches and tells both of his clones to train in the park. 1 month has passed and Sangwoo's improvement is going pretty well. Junmo asks him over the phone about their plan's progress so far, and it seems to be positive and is increasing rapidly. Looking at his stats, Sangwoo thinks that he is on an E ranker's level as he asks Junmo to arrange 3 F rank hunting grounds by tomorrow. He was taken aback by the request but assures Sangwoo that he can make it happen and asks the time of the hunt. After they agree on the schedule, Sangwoo assembles his clones as he commands them to specific areas to exercise and tells them to go work out in the park and come back at 12, and leave the guns. As Sangwoo browses the internet to watch hunter videos, he thinks about how his clones are fast learners and how they are able to copy movements easily. He wonders what happens if he studies all the monsters and ways to hunt them correctly. He assumes his clones would also improve this way. Time passed, and the clones were back from training, which Sangwoo did not even notice due to studying the attack patterns of the monsters they would most likely encounter during a hunt. He then plans to learn mana breathing as his clones would do the hunting at the same time. After that, he commands them to prepare after eating as Junmo is coming to pick them up and take them to their designated hunting grounds. Junmo arrives and feels the presence of the clones is a little overpowering, to which Sangwoo agrees. He then asks if the hunting grounds are prepared, which Junmo confirms as his clones get into the car with Junmo. He then asks Sangwoo if he's not going, to which he confirms, telling him that he will be at home as he will be learning mana breathing and just inform him once all of the clones are on their designated hunting grounds. After Junmo leaves, Sangwoo immediately tries to follow the steps he learned in order to execute mana breathing, focusing on breathing techniques and body relaxation. He continuously feels the mana circulating around his body. Upon doing this, he feels the sudden surge of energy in his chest, and his status window suddenly appears, informing him that the skill, meditation, has been obtained. The skill he acquired stabilizes his mind and increases his mana recovery. In one of the dungeons, many hunters had fallen while a hunter crawls for his life after losing one of his legs, scared of what he sees, and surprised that one of those powerful monsters appears at a supposed to be a safe hunting ground. He tried to escape, but the monster that lurks around him already had his sights on him and quickly finishes him off. Junmo arrives at the same dungeon together with the designated clone. He informs him of the monsters inside. He then texts Sangwoo that he has delivered all 3 and sees the potential in what Sangwoo could do to cause quite a stir in the hunting business. Meanwhile, Sangwoo thought that he was able to unlock the mana breathing skill but realized the meditation skill is different as stated by the guide, which made him quite disappointed. After receiving the text from Junmo, he instantly casts the familiar skill on number 1, who is currently hunting giant rats, a F-rank monster, and found he seemed to be doing well. Sangwoo confirms that he had learned all that he could about this type of monster. The clone then applied the guide video of how to deal with giant rats and proceeded to execute all of the instructions that were given by the video that Sangwoo had watched earlier, with precision and accuracy. Sangwoo confirms that the strategies he has learned can be applied to combat by his clones during hunts. Despite how dire some situations can be during hunts, the clones execute them without fear and hesitation, and at the same time, Sangwoo learns to hunt from a distance using his familiar skill as his stats increase at a rapid rate due to his clones being in 3 hunting grounds at the same time. In the giant rats hunting grounds, some hunters are confused that the dungeon sounds quieter than usual and that they should have encountered monsters already. They then see a pile of giant rat corpses and assume they hit the jackpot. On the other hand, as Sangwoo overlooks all the hunts that seem to be going well, he feels that something is missing and immediately realizes that he forgot to instruct his clones to gather the corpses. He then commands them to do so, and don't hunt until it's completed. He notices clone number 3 isn't picking up some corpses and asks him why. Clone number 3 says that he is not the one who hunted it. He then tells clone number 3 to collect it even if it's not theirs, but notices that some of the corpses are severely damaged. Clone number 3 then picks up a human's arm, which startled Sangwoo. Suddenly, something moved fast, which they both noticed. They heard something, and when clone number 3 turned around to react, only to find out it was only a bait. The monster appeared behind them, tearing clone number 3's arm, which caused Sangwoo to subconsciously disconnect from the familiar skill due to the severe pain. He collects himself, then calls Junmo, informing him of what happened, and requests to take clone number 1 and 2 to the sewage plant immediately. Meanwhile, clone number 3 eventually disperses due to the damage he receives. Sangwoo arrived at the location and verified himself to the guards when suddenly he felt disconnected from Clone 3. After finding Junmo inside, who was already with Clone 1 and 2, Sangwoo informed him that number 3 was taken out not by a two-legged fish but something way stronger. Junmo asks for the description, and after Sangwoo describes what he saw, Junmo is shocked and tells him that the dungeons should be closed temporarily and alert security, telling Junmo that the monster is a fishman, a D-rank monster that is really deadly to the ranks of Sangwoo, that even a party of E-rankers don't stand chance against it. Sangwoo is aware of what could happen but tells Junmo to delay the report until his clones get inside the portal, and requests Junmo to trust him and his clones. He then activates his familiar skill into one of his clones inside the dungeon as they head to where clone number 3 is killed. Both clones approached cautiously and immediately spotted the fishman who was eating two-legged fish. Sangwoo then assesses the situation and thinks that he has a chance, looking at what he can do and the fishman's condition, which is pretty damaged from the battles it went through before him. He then commands his clones to aim for the head. Both clones started shooting, but the bullets just bounced off the fishman's skin like it was made of rubber. They were noticed by the now enraged fishman. It leaped above the clones and tried to attack them, but it was then countered by one of the clones with a long sword attack, but it barely scratched the skin of the fishman. They tried to lure him into the trees to limit its movement, but it did not work. Both clones attacked at the same time, but there was no damage, and one of them took a hit and flew into a tree. Sangwoo was confused but was able to find a weak spot thanks to one of the bullets that went through the fishman's skin and ordered his clones to shoot into it. Sangwoo was glad it worked and continued to attack. Suddenly the fishman's blood dripped through the sword that it was holding, and it started to emit flame. The fishman also suddenly became stronger. One of the clones was hit with its swing and felt the sudden increase in damage, and noticed that the sword was reacting to its blood. Sangwoo analyzes the moment as they exchange a flurry of blows and slices, and until one of his clones is stabbed in the abdomen, but he holds onto the arms of the fishman to make sure that his counterattack will land. He successfully landed a flurry of attacks. The fishman endured the attack and tried to land a hit on one of the clones, but the other clone blocks and continued to exchange blows with the fishman. Eventually, they finally knocked the fishman down. Both of his clones also fell to the ground due to exhaustion, but the sight of relief was not over. As they looked, that the fishman was gone, as footsteps with blood were the only traces left. Sangwoo then commands Clone 2 to follow it. As Clone 1 cannot move due to injuries, Sangwoo then notices that the fishman is heading in the direction of the portal. Outside the portal, hunters are stopped by the soldiers and informed of the situation. Junmo is also there and hopes that Sangwoo can finish the hunt in time. The soldiers in the portal were stunned seeing the fishman running towards the portal. They opened fire hoping it would go down, but the bullets were of no use. Suddenly Clone 2 emerged from the bushes and threw out a knife that bounced off the fishman's head. It was then caught by Sangwoo himself, who dealt the final blow by plunging the knife onto its head with all of his strength, shocking everyone, and Clone 2 approves. Like and subscribe if you want me to continue the next chapters, and thank you for watching.